Get out there and nominate your favorite podcasts. The People's Choice Podcast Awards voting is up on the 31st of July, so go to podcastawards.com to nominate the following shows. Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast in the categories of education and also storyteller drama. The Centralist in the category of politics and news. That's with show host Joe Montaldo. Science and Beyond in the category of science and medicine, also with show host Joe Montaldo. The Outer Realm in the category of society culture with show hosts Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. And the Pittsburgh Paranormal Chasing Prophecy in the category of religion and spirituality. There's another category that opened up for us recently, the People's Choice, so please select for this category as well. Go to podcastawards.com to vote for these 5 shows and any others you enjoy listening to. That's podcastawards.com. And remember, voting ends July 31st, so go ahead and get your votes in.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm with myself, Michelle Desrochers, and my little companion, Amelia Pisano. Look at her bubbly face.
She paused.
Anyway, we are broadcasting live here via the International Public Radio on United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. Tonight's segment is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee. So let's extend them a huge thank you. Tonight, we welcome Tom Conwell to the show for the very first time. I think you guys are going to love him. He's got all kinds of books out, and he's going to talk about them and the UFOs and their connection to earthquakes and how seeing them can affect people in different ways. So we're really looking forward to that. In order to participate in tonight's show, you're going to have to head over to the International Public Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and UFO Paranormal Radio Network YouTube pages. If you want a direct response, please tag Amelia only on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Don't forget to subscribe. So it's going to be a great show. Please settle in and get yourselves all ready to go. So here we go.
We have a deep breather. I think that's Joe. Sorry, I'm getting down there. You know, I put it on high. I just needed a second for you. Sorry about the X-rated language.
Actually, I was entertained, so don't worry.
Oh, that's like a blooper.
That's good.
We're the only ones that can hear it.
Bloopers. It's not funny. It's not funny. I just want to give you a quick intro for everybody who is listening, and it's good to have you here. UFologist Tom Conwell has been an electronic technician with the U.S. Navy and Honeywell Incorporated for 42 years. A Honeywell temperature control, fire alarm, and security software specialist, biomedical engineer, is fire level 2 certified. Can you move in with me? Fire level 2 certified. I'm afraid of fires. Metrologist, study of measurements, and an HVAC engineering resource. Tom has a wide-ranging expertise with keen awareness for physics, computer and internet software, and a broad knowledge of electronics and how it intersects with the paranormal world and the UFOs. This is exciting. I can't tell you. I have such a fear of aliens. It's not funny. So this is going to be really good for me.
I do not. So I'll leave that right there.
Yeah.
Yes. So tonight is actually more so about UFOs and your book titles, They Are Here. So I'm assuming we're talking UFOs, or are we, talking in a way about extraterrestrials who really do exist here? So I always start off with humble beginnings. So how did you come to decide this is going to be your thing?
When I was a lot younger, I was always interested in the UFO field and in astronomy. And I looked into that for a lot of years, read a lot of books about astronomy. And but then, of course, life got in the way. I had kids and worked for Honeywell and the Navy. And so I really didn't have any opportunity to get outside of that realm until I retired. And I retired approximately 10 years ago. And my first thing that I did was I joined a paranormal team and had an opportunity to lend some expertise in electronics to the people on the team. and I was on another team, and I guess to make a long story short, I also transitioned into ufology,
It's
the
usually
study of
right.
UFOs.
Mhm.
So, in order to cut my bones, I guess you might say, in ufology, I wrote a series of blogs. And these blogs, I wrote about 35 of them, I guess. And each one was anywhere from 1 to maybe 4 pages in length.
Mm.
And what I wanted to do was to get people who were not interested, or had great doubts that UFOs even existed, and to try to convince them that this really they do exist. So I wrote about, from the viewpoint of, what if we wanted to go to their planet versus them coming to our planet? What
Mm.
kind of problems would we have to solve in order to pull that off? And every little aspect of something that we would have to solve, such as um, being able to levitate, uh, rapidly getting into space, all of those things, I had to make a list of and describe some of the ways that we can solve those problems. And that ended up being my 4th book. Because what I had to do after writing all those blogs of different subjects is write intros between the blogs.
Right.
And once I did that, voila, had another book. So that worked out pretty well. And then when I got into ufology directly, then I started to write my first book, which was about UFO sightings, based on the National UFO Reporting Center. Directly behind me is a map, and that is my UFO sighting map.
Wow.
And there's a lot of pins in there.
Yes.
And I went with each particular sighting, got rid of the ones that were nonsense, and
That's a lot of pins, Tom.
yeah.
That's a lot of sightings. That's a lot of
Um,
sightings.
You don't even know the half of it.
No, I want to hear all about it.
Wow.
Even though you see
nightmare.
even though you see the pins and you see the sightings represented by each pin, if you look closely, there's big pins there too. Each big pin is 20 little sightings. And it got so bad when I went to the West Coast, back here, when I got to the West Coast, that I had to make each pin equal 100 sightings.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's just a crazy a thing.
Oh
And
my God.
these are not all of the sightings in the U.S. These aren't all of them. These are about approximately half, I guess.
Well, the
So you're-
reported ones, how many go unreported?
A lot, and there's been estimates that it's 1 in 10, but that number is a whole lot worse than that. It's probably 1 in 80.
Wow. Really?
You're going to perforate that map. It's just going to fall off.
It really wasn't realistic for me to incorporate all the sightings, so I had to cut back on which ones that I was posting, and it was a struggle to put this map together. Let me tell you, it took me a whole year,
Wow. I can imagine.
a lot
So
of work.
what
lot
makes
of
you
time.
differentiate between the ones that you just tossed aside? Like what makes, I mean, obviously there's some information that's more viable than others, but what makes it not viable? Because I mean, people like weather balloons or just, perception.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's several questions in there.
Now
A
just
lot
take
of
your
the
time.
ones, a
You
lot
got
of the
an hour.
ones. Oh, okay, a lot of the ones that I tossed aside were um, the lesser amounts seen
Okay.
in particular areas. So
Okay.
I didn't include the lesser amounts because I already had tons of sightings from the larger amounts. And I knew that was already going to fill my map. All right. That's the first part of the question. The second part is when I discarded sightings, I discarded them because some of the sightings were just lights in the sky. Well, you can't prove what's up there if all you see is a light. So I pretty much discounted all of the lights in the sky. The ones that were that people claimed were one thing, and then they wrote, "Oh no, what I saw was something different." They couldn't make up their mind, so I almost had to disregard those. There was a bunch that obviously described something that someone was looking at with a lot of poor background, such as a meteor. A meteor goes flashing across the sky. Well, it's not a UFO; it's a meteor.
Right.
You know, and then people would see something in the sky is really bright, and it's there in the sky, and it's moving very, very, very slowly, and it's still there in the morning. Well, they're probably looking at a star. So it is that kind of thing. I was able to eliminate probably 30% of the actual sightings.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot. But I do understand, because sometimes, I mean, technically anything flying around that you don't know what it is unidentified flying object, right? Technicalities. Okay. So with that being said, you've put together this map. What is your objective? Like, what do you want to get to a point with all this? That it's full, that it's, where are you going with it? What's the ultimate?
Okay. Well, when I first started doing the map, I didn't know what I was going to see. I honestly didn't. What I was hoping to do was to get little areas that maybe stuck out from others that I could go do a public talk on. To some anomaly, in other words. And there were a couple of those in the first map that I did, which happened to be just only New York State. And I thought, geez, it would be interesting if I did a couple of more states. So I was going to give a talk in Pennsylvania. So I did a map of Pennsylvania and looked at the UFO sightings there. And there was some pretty interesting areas that stuck out that I couldn't explain. Once I realized that I had that kind of an issue, I knew what I had to be doing. I had to do a big U.S. map, but I didn't want to, because I knew I was going to be involved for a whole year putting this stupid thing together. I mean, it was just, it was awful. It really was.
Right.
It's
So
a lot of work.
I hit the no return point when I started my second book. My first book was about the East Coast and all UFO sightings on there. I still hadn't done a map of the East Coast, but I wrote about it. And then I started doing the central U.S. And all of a sudden, I realized that I was leaving too much information out by not having a map that I was referring to and looking at all of the various anomalies, because I wasn't going to see the anomalies until I had a map. And I had to do the map. So that's when I started. I started with my second book and then went back and did the rest of the map, the East Coast, to complete the first section of the book. It was a big job, very tough. I'm even considering doing something else along that line for more recent sightings to see if there's any differences. But there were probably 100 different areas on this map that I thought were unusual. And
how far back did you go? Sorry.
Pardon me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. How far back did you go? You say you're looking at more recent ones. How far back into the past did you start?
Okay. I went from 2001 through 2015.
Okay, so 15 years.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
That's
That's
a lot.
substantial.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
lot of sightings.
substantial.
Yeah.
I love that you have the pins on the map, because I think for a lot of people, when they hear a percentage, it's like, yeah, whatever, like 60%, 70%. But when you see it, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
There's a
exactly
lot.
why I did it.
Yeah, it's quite an impact. I'm a
Yeah.
visual learner, so for me, that was brilliant. But it's quite an impact when you see it like that and go, like, how is it possible that so much of the West Coast is covered in pins?
And that's a good point. What makes, in your experience, what makes one area, what is it about this area, for example, that makes it worse than this area? Is it like,
Yeah.
old ancient sites? Is it
Just
like,
more
is there anything
accessible from
specific about
water?
one area as opposed to another? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not the expert.
Oh,
Okay.
me. Neither
That
am I.
that was the subject of each of the books that I did. They Are Here series. What I did was I looked into each particular area, and I looked at all of the different things that could perhaps encourage a different civilization to look closer at what it is that we're doing in that particular area, and that would include things like Native American populations, because there's a lot of talk that the Native Americans um, have links to UFOs and to other civilizations from thousands of years ago. Well, then there's water. There's a tremendous amount of sightings of UFOs seen entering and exiting the water. Now, why would they be entering and exiting the water? I don't know. And then uh, what about the way we're treating our planet?
That's a big one.
The crap that we're dumping into the environment, the kind of plants that we use to generate power. Some of the plants are coal fired, and they are nasty. Let me tell you. Not only do you burn the coal and take the smoke up into the atmosphere that's full of carbon, you're also burning down the coal. So you have great big hoppers of coal you bring in, and what you have left is a smaller area of burned coal. Well, you're taking this out of the ground.
Yes.
There's trace elements of heavy metals that are in the ground that you're digging up with the coal. You burn it down, and now all of a sudden, the coal ash that you have has more than just trace elements of these nasty heavy metals, and they are very, very toxic.
Well, look at the area in upstate New York. Is it Petrolia? That's been burning for 60 years, coal fires underground. Is that what it's called? You guys have a place in
Are
upstate
you
New York.
talking about Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Oh, is it upstate
the
Pennsylvania? That's been going on and on and
Yeah.
on for 60
Yeah.
years.
Yep.
based on the movie Silent Hill, right?
Well, that's where
Yeah.
they filmed it. Yeah.
They based
So
it on that.
that's-
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can see that. And I can think, nuclear energy would be a concern. We are a warring sort of race. I could see that being a concern. I mean, the atomic bomb, Hiroshima, that would be concerning.
As soon as we did that, that got an awful lot of attention. And I believe that's probably what seriously spiked the UFO sightings. And they figured that they better learn about us darn quick. Because if we were close to being spacefaring, we were going to bring our warlike ways along with our nuclear weapons up into space. And they couldn't have that. So they had to find out about us really, really quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Do you put any merit into the theory that we are already in space? A lot of people believe that the government actually has a fleet in space.
Oh, they probably do. I haven't come across any evidence that they do, other than people talking about it. Well,
Yeah.
Do we likely have something up there? Yeah, likely. We've
Mhm.
also likely been able to solve the problem with the some of the ships that we recovered, and we
Reverse
can
engineering.
yeah, and we can jump out into space in a few seconds. Um,
Mhm.
I think we can do all that stuff, and
Mhm.
it would make sense that we are building something out there. But
Mhm.
again, I have no firsthand knowledge of it. But
Mhm.
my guess is, yeah, we have that.
If you have to take a shot at it. Yeah,
Sure.
I think so also. I guess which brings to the next question with your thoughts. Some of these sightings, do you think they are all, let's say, extraterrestrial, or do you think some of them are ours? With
Okay. Um, that's a really big question there. Um,
I do that once in a while.
yeah. Okay.
Just throw it out
This
there.
My
this
line.
one this one
It's
turned
my
out pretty
line.
big. Um, some of them perhaps are ours, but
Right.
we wouldn't be flying our um, our special craft, our hidden craft that nobody knows about, in and around Pittsburgh or whatever. We just wouldn't do
Oh.
that. If there were crash, um,
Mm,
then we'd be found out.
right.
So I don't think that we can think that all the things that we see are ours. I think it very limited amount.
Mhm.
However, that brings up the question: then what are they? Well, are they from another civilization? I think that's probably very likely, but that civilization may be from another planet or from another dimension.
Mhm.
It could be anything.
Right. Right. So dimensional. That's
That's
interesting.
why it's such a big question. Um, you could get the right kind of a guest on, and they could talk for 3 4 hours on dimensions.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
we don't
Absolutely.
know a lot about them, but
Mhm.
we're certainly learning, and we're trying to learn very quickly.
Mhm. So you see, I mean, we see enough of them. Do you think are they coming from space, or are they here already? Like in our oceans, in our mountains, walking among us, as some people think.
Okay. Yes.
I
All of
like
the
it.
above.
I like it. You don't want to phone a friend or anything? You're pretty sure in that?
All of the
Pretty
above.
sure.
I
We'll get Joe.
choose D. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
the above.
That's it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
back in the early 1900s, there were some sightings that were seen and noted. I think that there was a small presence of uh, other civilizations, crafts in and around our environment, whether they were living underground, underwater, in orbit, whatever the deal happened to be. They were definitely there. Once we lit off a few nuclear weapons, and the visitors realized that we could be a real threat, then I think that's when everything ramped up, and they sent lots of representatives to our planet, and those representatives had to find a place to live, and most of them lived. I believe most of them lived underwater. Now,
That makes sense.
there are
Mhm.
some of them that live underground,
Yeah.
and these are the ones I believe that the government is actually working with. And there are others that are um, living perhaps on one of the close in planets or asteroids or something like that,
Mm.
because it happens to be handy to be. And
Hmm. Maybe the
now,
moon. There's a lot of
or
speculations about the moon.
yeah, I believe as far as the moon goes, that there was a civilization there a lot of years ago.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not convinced that um, I'm not really convinced that they're there any longer. Um,
Okay.
I think there may
Oh,
have been some sort of skirmish or something like that,
Mm.
because some of the people that have come back from there have described their stories about seeing wreckages and things like that.
Right.
Um, I believe that uh, some of these civilizations that lived there initially aren't living there anymore. Now they may have moved internal to the moon. That's possible.
Yeah, because I mean, here we are as explorers exploring the moon because it's the most accessible to us. It was doable, right? To be able to land on the moon. And then all of a sudden, nobody's on the moon anymore. It's like,
right.
does that, right? They're not doing anything with the moon.
Oh, that's a great
Why,
point.
why wouldn't you? When it's the closest, it's easiest to colonize, you would
It,
think.
it absolutely is.
Yeah.
I think we were warned off the moon because we
Mhm.
weren't ready for a major revelation that that the moon is inhabited by some beings, um,
Mm,
and they realized that the the Earth wasn't ready for that big revelation, that big disclosure, and they had us get off of there and just look at near space and get better at that before they would incorporate, or excuse me, before they would allow us to come there.
right. Yeah, that's a big one right there, which tells me then that there's not a lot of faith put in humanity with respects to how we're going to react, which I guess makes me think disclosure. Are we ready for disclosure? Because I mean, they sure didn't give us a whole lot last month. You know,
Yeah, they're not.
All that
like
hype.
next to
It was
nothing,
like
preliminary,
Christmas.
whole lot of nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was like Christmas. It came that morning, and boom, it was gone,
It
and it
was
was
gone.
over.
It's like,
Like
where's the
all we
gift?
got left with was the tree.
That's
Mhm.
right, the Grinch.
Yeah.
The government's the Grinch. Just saying.
Like, come on.
We received a whole lot more with the U.S. Navy videos than we did on that day with the uh, uh, written report, which
Right.
wasn't much of a report.
No.
Well, pretty much all that they said there is that uh, anything that's up in the sky, we really should be looking into Russia and China having having reverse engineered or
Mhm.
Wow.
having some breakthrough, and and they're flying into our skies. But if we didn't do that, then maybe, just maybe, there was a ancient civilization.
So maybe
Maybe,
there was
maybe,
something there. We don't
yeah,
know for sure if there's something there or
yes.
not. Right. So okay. So are
It's
we
the
ready
same
for it?
answer, though.
I know. It's like,
It's
where do
the
you go
same
with that
answer every
exactly?
like 50 years.
Yep.
Seriously.
We're not going to
And
get
why
anything.
everything's always redacted as well. They say they won't, and then it's redacted. It's like, really? So it's as bad as the Kennedy files.
I think we get more from everyday people with camera phones,
Yeah, absolutely.
but they seem to take it very well. Like, do you think people are ready for any like a type of disclosure? I think I'm ready because they don't bother me at all. I'm pretty comfortable with it
There's a
now.
lot of people that are ready. There's a lot of people who aren't ready. Um, if you look around and uh, if something traumatic happens, watch the reactions of people. The ones that overreact are the ones that aren't ready.
Right.
That's pretty much it. And there's probably, well, there's definitely an increasing percentage of people who are um, being turned on, um, ascending, if you will.
Right.
And
So waking up.
this group of
Yeah.
people is absolutely ready. They know what's going on, and
Right.
they're ready and primed. But
Right.
there's a whole lot of people who, well, aren't.
Right.
I'm okay with it because I know that I really believe that they are integrated with us right now, and we just don't know it. My
Oh, sure they
fear,
are. Yeah.
my fear is like anybody's natural fear of the unknown. Period. Like I never know this doesn't exist. I talk to dead people. Like, who am I to say that this doesn't exist? I believe in all of it. But like I said, for all I know, they could be in my life every day and I don't even realize it. It's just the whole fear because of that whole Hollywood thing for so many years.
That's exactly
of
right.
destruction. And that's what weighs on me. So once I get past that, I think like you said, there's more people ready than there isn't. I have to agree with you on that.
The Hollywood nonsense was done on purpose to try to scare everyone.
I know.
But then they could say they could take a particular sighting and compare it to a movie, and the movie has something stupid that happens in it, and then everybody discounts it. And if it actually makes it to the TV, then it'd make it in the last minute and a half of the TV news program, and everyone would leave laughing.
Right.
That's how it was
So
portrayed.
they're sort of doing it again, though. Do you think that disclosure is the beginning of, let's say, false flags, fake wars, instill more fear? Because we've become so relaxed with it all now.
Yeah.
With sightings, everybody's got a camera phone, right? So everybody's got one of these, eyes on the sky. So what happens now? People aren't afraid. What's the next step to maybe instilling more fear, keeping that control?
If that's the case, then the false flag thing would be a natural extension.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that we're going to find out that the government knows some things, that they're going to be showing more and more videos that are.
But it's aggressive videos. Like they're either being swarmed or they're being chased. Like you don't hear any stories where maybe it's benign.
Yeah. Like
they're showing this like an aggressive edge to it,
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's not aggressive.
Right.
But
if I was being chased, I'd be concerned.
You get a whole lot of people now on social media who will talk about threats and things like this, even though there are no threats. These people are just here just to make sure that we're ready for what is coming down the pike. And they aren't here to take us over, because they would have done it years ago before we lit off our first nuclear weapon.
That's it.
Okay, I agree with both of you on that, but and I have to always be the other.
Have a devil's advocate in the room.
Yes, I pretty much branded. Michelle knows me very well. I still believe that, like any race, there's always something not so nice. So it can't.
Well, you have your bad apple in every batch, right? Is that what you're saying?
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So I don't believe that all of them are benevolent. I believe that there are some that we should be concerned about, just like terrorists, just like anything within our own race as well.
There's a big fear of Stephen Hawking's. There are a lot of great minds that are saying, "Oh, we need to be leery about throwing messages into space that make us look like we're this fluffy, benign race of beings."
Yeah, but let me throw something out about that too.
Okay.
They already know that we're here. They know what we are. They know everything about us.
Right.
So to send a message out into space, they'll go, "Those idiots are at it again."
Why are they wasting their energy?
Yeah. They don't care.
Tesla was brilliant. He spoke to the dead, not to the.
Well, he actually built the machine to speak with aliens. He called them Martians, and it's believed that some of his technology came potentially from some of the messages that he received. I read that recently. I was just like,
I believe that. I love him, but it's so sad what happened with him and the government, but that's another show.
It's another show.
That's a whole other show.
Yes.
Tesla's a whole other show.
So let's maybe hit on, obviously there's a lot of people out there who do have sightings. And you mentioned that sightings do affect people in different ways. What can you just get into that a little bit? Because I've had sightings like much of my life, and I'd find myself actually looking for more sightings. I grew up north with beautiful crystal clear nights, and we didn't have satellites then. I'm aging myself, and maybe there's one or two, but nothing that you couldn't, no space station, nothing like that. So.
No.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you froze.
No, I was waiting for the question to end. I actually thought it was
shorter next time. No, well, this is very round table like. It's not like we're not drill sergeants.
We're not drilling you. We're just discussing. That's all.
Okay. What were we talking about again?
How does it affect people? How do you think sightings affect people? Yeah.
Well, I can probably tell you this. I did not have my first UFO sighting until after I saw my first ghost. And that was after I retired.
Interesting.
So I was well into my 60s at that point. And I, even though I believed in UFOs, I saw nothing. Even though I looked, I just nothing. And I saw several ghosts along the way during paranormal investigation. And it was at that point that things started happening around me, that I became aware of things. I became aware when I walked into a room if there was perhaps an entity there. And it was around that point that I started speaking to the sky. I would go out front and sit on my porch and look up into the sky and say, "All right, I'm ready to see you. I think I've advanced to the point that I'm ready to see one of your ships. So if you could show it to me, I wouldn't object."
And it happened that easily? You're going to have multitudes of people.
That's all it takes. That's what CE5 is.
Okay, explain CE5 then.
It's pretty much the same thing. All right. So I was dying to see something.
Right.
It was about that point at which I had evolved into ufology and wrote my first book. I was just about ready to send it in for publication, and I went outside one last time and said, "Guys, my first book is going to be published tomorrow. Now would be a good time to see a UFO." So I went back in. I was doing some work on my computer, and my wife called me and said, "Go out back real quick, look up in the sky." So I went out back and I looked up and I saw this orange ball of fire that was floating across the sky.
Wow.
And it was just the oddest thing I've ever seen. And I said, "That's moving way too slow for a meteor." So she said, "Okay, another one's coming." Well, at that point, I ran from the backyard into the front yard because she had a much better view than I did. So I ended up seeing 9 UFOs that night. That were 9 that happened to be, that happened to be balls of fire. And it actually looked like, if you were to take a Nerf ball, you guys know what a Nerf ball is?
Yes.
Okay. You take a Nerf ball and you soak it in oil and then set it on fire.
Right.
It'd be a ball of burning whatever. Okay.
Yeah, like a
That's
comet.
what it looked like. That's what it looked like. And coming from the back of this, if you did this with a Nerf ball, there'd be a long trail of smoke. With what I was seeing, there was no smoke or noise. Yep, nothing.
And this is
Nothing.
upon request, basically saying, I'm ready to see you.
Pretty much. This was within 2 days
Wow.
after I had told them that I was ready to see something. Okay. So then at that point, I couldn't take my eyes off the sky, and I was
Right.
looking just constantly. Well, I wrote my second book, and just about the time I was ready to send something in, I sat up front and said, "Okay, guys, my second book is due. I sure would like to see something." So then I went back in and started working to finish up the book. And lo and behold, let's see, that was the one that we were on. My wife and I we went on a bus trip, and I saw something in the air in New Hampshire at a resort. It was a bright flash of red, and out of this bright flash of red came this white streak that just went just straight out, and it moved faster than anything I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Well, I knew that that wasn't a um, a meteor, because it would have been moving in, number one, the opposite direction. Number two, it probably would have had a decaying orbit, like coming towards the Earth, instead of perfectly straight and not decaying at all. And
Mhm.
it most likely wouldn't have been moving that quickly unless it just skipped off the atmosphere. But that wasn't a meteor that I saw. That was something that probably entered a portal of some sort and appeared in our 3D environment. So that was number two. Number three, I was writing my third book, and I was working nights. And one morning, we had to go into work in the daytime for two areas because we were doing fire alarm testing, and we couldn't get to those areas at night. So we went into work during the day, and I saw this red light. It really looked like the top of an electrical tower.
Mhm.
But it was like really super bright, and I knew that there was an electrical tower there, so I kept staring at it as my car was approaching, and I had a turn off, so I turned my turn signal on to turn left, and as soon as I did that, this thing charged at my car, and it came towards me in a sinusoidal way, and just before it hit the windshield, it took off up and to the right.
Was it a
Wow.
threatening
What the
feeling,
hell
or
was
was it
that?
just, "Hey, I'm right here," right? Like, what was that?
I have
I like
no
that.
idea. It was obviously something that was controlled,
Mm.
um, because there's no way that somebody would have been able to control something like that from earthly technology. There just was no way, because it was
Yeah.
moving very, very fast and just missed
Hmm.
my windshield.
That
Wow.
that almost sounds
Wow.
threatening,
Yeah,
for me
and
anyways.
that was the third. That was the third time that I saw a UFO, and each one on command.
Wow.
I haven't asked since, but I would not be surprised if I were to say that, I had a good reason. I would like to write about you. Please show yourself, and
Oh, you just did it.
and
So
then it would. Yeah, I just did
you
it.
just did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
I
So
don't think he means right now, though, okay? Just
Yeah.
so I guess that leads me to ask you, so if they come so easily on request, are you ready for contact? Because you've seen the craft. Would you be ready for contact, like a dialogue, and just to see what it's all about, get some answers?
imagine
Yeah.
that book.
Yeah, I've had several other things happen to me during sleep, that were unusual. And people said to me that I had a meeting with an extraterrestrial, but I don't know.
But they do come in
know.
visions. Like, allegedly, they will give you a vision to
Yeah.
communicate that, right?
The one time I found myself walking down this path in the woods, and I could feel the leaves under my feet. And I turned the corner, and there was a ship right there, and a guy outside of the ship. And this guy was made out of light. He wasn't like a flesh and blood kind of thing. He was made out of light. And he invited me on his ship, and he told me that he needed my energy to fix his shipmate. And so he had me go onto the ship, and I stood there for what seemed to be about 2 minutes. And then they said, okay, it's time for you to leave. I left, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in bed. And the first thing I did when I woke up in bed is I reached down for my feet, because I would have sworn that they'd be wet and there'd be leaves attached to them. That's how real this dream was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess it's trying to determine, was it a dream or were you really there?
Yeah, maybe it was a dream. I can't be sure. And another time I woke up and ran to the window and looked up, and I saw a great big long line of UFOs just sitting there in the sky. A long line as far as my eye could see. That was a vision.
Can I ask
Do you
a
live
question?
in a room? Oh yeah, you go first.
No, it's okay.
No, I was just wondering if you live in a remote area or if you're in the city.
I'm within the city limits.
Okay.
I'm not in a remote area though.
Okay. Curious, yeah.
And when they made this request of you, was it the way we speak, or was it telepathically? That's a question I always ask people who've been contacted.
I honestly don't know, but they did tell me.
Okay.
And I couldn't see the guy's lips moving because he was nothing but light.
Right.
Yeah, so it was telepathically.
So thought base.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not like you just knew he was speaking.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes total sense.
I find it interesting that you had your first sighting after you stopped, researching ghosts, or before, or was it before or after you saw your first ghost? A lot of people seem to venture into the field of ufology from the paranormal. I myself have done it, Do you think there's a connection?
Yes. Yep. The connection is interdimensional.
Right.
If you were to go out to a lake in the early morning hours and look at the water in the lake, it's like glass. It's just perfectly still. I've always liked to do that with when we visited friends and I was a young boy, and I would go out and sit there and just look at the water. It was just very relaxing. Now, if you were to take a boat and drive by this area where you're looking out and it's just like glass, and you run this boat across, it would create a perfect wake, and this wake would come in and you'd see the water coming in towards you, and it would hit on the shore, and the wake would reflect off of the shore and go back out towards where generally where it came from. The ships that come to our planet are utilizing dimensional travel, if not other travel. And when they jump into a different dimension and fly here, they create wakes in these dimensions. And I believe that what's happening is the wakes that they're creating within the dimensions are generating things so that whatever may happen to be within the dimensions can now cross over into where we happen to be.
Like, as my producer would call it, a dimensional bleed through, perhaps, just coming through.
A bleed through that could be a bleed through, sure.
Yeah.
That's one way to look at it.
Mhm.
I don't know if I call it a bleed through, but I probably call it more of a door opening.
Right, it's a portal.
Yeah, but
Right.
I actually believe that's sort of what's happening there.
They just slip in and out of different portals. And yeah, I believe, there are power spots all over the world. Stonehenge, for one, the ancient pyramids. It's not out of the norm that there would be many other places like that for extraterrestrials to just pop through.
Oh, sure. That there's lots of things that are creating these portals, and I believe that some of them are related to the water. They're either underwater or they're because of the energy of the water, something along those lines. They are utilizing water.
Maybe because they'd be able to breathe a little bit better as well, harness the energy and the darkness, perhaps, because I've seen and read that the sunlight affects them.
Could be, maybe they come from a planet that they are water beings anyhow, and that's where they're comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really wish I knew.
How many races do you believe there are for aliens?
Okay. Well, this is a guess. And
of course,
again, this is one of those questions that can go 50 different directions here.
Yeah. We won't hold you to anything.
We don't have concrete proof.
Yeah.
We're just curious because we ask everyone, just to see if anyone knows anything different.
There are 200 billion stars in our own galaxy, our Milky Way. And there's probably 3 to 5 planets attached to every single star.
Wow.
Every one. Wow. And there's moons around many of these that could harbor life. That's just how many are in our galaxy. There may be 500 billion galaxies. So you multiply 500 billion by 200 billion, and you have a number that's about 10 to the 24th, or 1 with 24 zeros after it. That's how many stars in the known universe. That's what's known. So there are most likely hundreds of billions of civilizations. Each civilization would create a different race of people, slightly different from the other. Okay, so that's how many there are, because every race creates something different on within their own planet. So there's a whole lot out there.
Thank you for answering that, because a lot of people will answer like generic, like 7 or 10 or whatever's on the internet, but you gave us something, real to think about. Thank you.
So do you think that we are descendants of, I guess, Martians, like from Mars? They seem to be finding structures that are a little bit questionable. Do you think they would have run into some trouble at some point and we sort of ended up here? Are we descendants, perhaps?
Maybe. I don't know. Again, this is one of those things that there's just no direct answer for it yet. And if there is, it's being hidden from us.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So let's get into earthquakes, UFO connections, earthquakes, and volcanoes. There's a lot of, film footage out there of UFOs going into volcanoes or UFOs showing up around earthquakes. Some people will argue it and say, no, they're called earthquake lights. And, what do you think the deal is with that? I know you've been doing research on that.
Yeah, that was my most recent book.
Oh, fantastic.
Excuse me. Earthquakes and UFOs. And the fun thing about that book, there's
very nice. There we go.
what it looks like.
Great.
Everybody see
Thank you.
it? Yeah, we see
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. Okay.
I love the cover. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend from Ireland do that for me.
Beautiful.
And she gave it to me for free. So I
Oh,
owe her
that's
big time.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great cover. You can give her a shout out if you like. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, her name is Kathy Denver.
There we go. Archive here forever.
Denver
Yeah,
in Ireland.
She's a former paranormal investigator and also likes UFOs and stuff. And she dabbles in graphics. And she always wanted to do something like this. And I gave her an opportunity, and she jumped at it and said, let me do one for you. So
Bang up job she did too.
yeah.
She did a beautiful job.
Yeah.
She did a beautiful job. It's an honor I've done one cover, and it's an honor to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's thrilled. Kathy Denver, Ireland Graphics.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Put that out there.
So tell us about the research, your theories.
Okay. I started out with the premise that UFOs are greatly attracted to larger earthquakes. And when they occur, there's going to be a series of sightings in and around the major earthquakes. I knew it was, and I just set out to prove it based on the databases. So I got a hold of the database from the National Earthquake Center and for the National UFO Reporting Center and compared them. It took me about 2 years to compare all of the graphics of one compared to another. And I took little windows of time, like 5 days, 2 days before, 2 days after, and the day of the earthquake, and looked at whether there was a collection of UFOs in and around the earthquake. Well, I went through 23 of them from 2001 to 2015. And I found, you see my hand? Zero.
Yes, really?
None. Nothing that I would say that there are UFOs attracted to earthquakes.
Wow.
So I thought, I know that they have to be. It just didn't seem logical that they weren't. So I advanced my time frame. I went 5 days before, 5 days after, and a day off, and that's an 11-day window. And I still found nothing.
Wow.
Nothing. No direct correlation. When you have a large earthquake, you get a bunch of UFO sightings. A few that were close, and maybe you could, if you only looked at one or two of these, you may be able to make a correlation to say, oh yeah, they're there. But with all the data that I had, I couldn't make that correlation. So what I did was I put all of these maps that I created. And I had created at that point, let's see, 20, 40, approximately 50 maps of, 60 maps of the U.S. map with the earthquakes on them, the U.S. map with the 5-day sequence of UFO sightings, and the U.S. map with 11-day sequence. And I put them out on a page of paper and stretched them out and looked and tried to come up with some correlation between the two. No correlation.
I have
Nothing.
to wonder if the frequency of an earthquake, sorry, Tom, if the frequency of an earthquake affects them vibrationally, and that's why you have less No,
I don't know why.
I
Who
don't.
knows?
Yeah, I'm
Um,
just wondering.
so, well, anyhow, um, I put all this stuff away and went back and looked about 2 months later because I was so frustrated. I had spent almost a year and a quarter looking at all of this data and putting all this data together, and I had nothing to show for it. Well, I set out my maps a little differently this time. I put my earthquakes in one section. I put my 5-day windows in a second section, and I put the 11-day window in the third section. And my dog started barking, so I went to the door and let him out, and came back. And as I approached the maps from a different direction, I was looking at the maps as if I was standing at the West Coast looking toward the East Coast, okay, instead of in the South looking north.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a whole bunch of straight lines of sightings.
Mm.
Why would we have straight line sightings at that point? Because you go to the 11 day, I went back down to the 11 day and looked, and now they were just all over the place. But the 5-day one was just a short enough window that I saw these lines within the maps.
Mhm.
Well, that got me going. I couldn't account for them.
Mm.
I had no idea why. I thought, well, geez, if they're an advanced race, they are going to have access to advanced computers, and they wouldn't have to go over the same area back and forth over and over and over again. Because all they have to do is go over once. They have these supercomputers. They just put it on the hard drive and look at it whenever they want. So that can't possibly be why they're going back and forth. Something was changing. Every single week, something was changing. So what was changing? Well, it wasn't the minerals underground. They're locked in place. It wasn't the water, because the rivers are still there. It wasn't it wasn't the pollution, because the pollution was always there. So why would there be this kind of a rapid change that they would need to go back and forth over the same areas within the country over and over and over? And it occurred to me that the only reason that that might be true is that what might be changing might be the people.
Mm.
The people were awakening. And I couldn't be certain because I wasn't sure at that point what awakening meant.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 10 or 11, no, excuse me, I got 16 people, my friends from across the country. I'm sure you girls know many of them, if I were to tell you their names, but I got them to describe to me what awakening meant to them.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean? Exactly what's going on during this event. So I took all of those things and put them in the back of the book. This is my description of what I think is happening. These are the descriptions of what awakening is, and then I concluded the book with my thoughts around that. But that's all that I could come up with. The people are changing. The people are awakening. And I feel that pretty solidly. Because I found that happening to me. And it happened within a 3-year period. And all kinds of stuff is happening now to me again. And you get a whole lot of stories in some of the groups on Facebook where that occurs with people. So
Yeah. An awakening, enlightenment, evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ascendancy, whatever you want to call
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Hmm. Right. So it's nothing specific like they're attracted to seismic,
No,
like nothing. It's
no.
nothing else. It's just people around the areas maybe, but it's the people. So
It's the
this would
people.
be a global effect then because people are
Yep.
awakening.
Yep.
Fascinating.
Globally. I
Fascinating.
have just happened to find out in the United States, this is what was happening based on the data that I came up with.
Hmm.
See,
Right.
I have an issue with. Ugh.
Say it.
No, my thing is the thing that always goes through my head, because I've spoken to people who've been abducted and everything, and all the ones that experience pain and fear. Like, I wonder why, if they're supposed to be a race of kindness and assistance, why are
There
they
are some that
hurting?
have good experiences as well, though.
Yeah, but sadly, we hear more negative than we hear positive.
Now, are you talking about people that were abducted?
Yes,
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
absolutely.
That's a little different story. Okay. But the people that were abducted are people who were, well, taken out of their home.
Hmm.
Of course, they're scared
Hmm.
Yeah.
and they're frightened because they think they're being challenged. But what's actually happening to them? Well,
Mm.
they're being looked at physically. Some of them are being used for their eggs,
Hmm.
others for sperm. They're creating another race of a people, um, and that is a frightening aspect. So
Yeah,
that's
of
why
course
they're
it is.
frightened.
You're
That's why
violated.
they're frightened. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why they're frightened.
Well, maybe they're evolving our own species too. People look at it as well, they're evolving their own. Maybe we're the ones who are trying to evolve.
Maybe.
Maybe they know
Yeah.
They're
something that we don't know. Let's face it, I think we are a species that needs help. We're aggressive, we're angry. As humankind, we don't really take care of our poor or our sick the way we should. We are destroying the planet. We're always fighting. We're power hungry. I mean, as a race in general, and a lot of these beings are supposed to be. I mean, you have like I said, the bad apples in every batch, but on a whole, there are some people that believe that they're pretty benign. Maybe they don't interfere, but maybe they are trying to just evolve us a little bit.
Um, I did a bunch of interviews of people that were abducted, probably about 30, 35 in that range of people that told me they wanted to tell me their story. And in every single instance, the person who was abducted thought they were um, thought they were psychic before they started, and when they came back, they had a great increase in their psychic powers.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of great stories like that. People who come back healed.
Yep.
But then there are stories where it's the other way. Again, I just, it's just one of those things that they're going to have your pros and cons, just like every situation. But that's interesting. Evolution, I think, awakening, I think, is the key.
Yes. Yep. And I found it by accident.
So are you going to research it further? Another book, maybe?
Maybe only because I just tripped over this by accident,
Right.
and I had a physical representation of something that was happening psychically.
Mm,
And I don't think I'm going to come up with anything like that again. So
right.
I may or may not do something similar to that, but
It'd be a compilation of people's awakening experiences with,
Mm-hmm.
are they seeing crafts? Are they having the type of experiences that you did when you were saying awakening and saying, okay, I'm ready now to see you. I mean, look at your experiences.
Mhm.
You could probably write a huge chapter just on yourself.
Yes, absolutely I could, but I don't know if I want to do that.
Mm,
When I interviewed people who were abducted, the one thing that it did to me is that um, I swore to them that I would never tell their
mhm.
particular story to anybody else.
Yeah.
That it was their job to tell their story.
I
And I've been approached 100 times about, oh, give me some good details. Some of the things I
yeah.
can't do that.
I meant more about the awakening.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
people awakening, and because when you awakened, you were getting contact. And I think as people awaken, what are their contact experiences
Yeah,
like? Like, no, abduction stories, they're all over the place. They're a dime a dozen, and I respect your integrity with that. I think it is wonderful because it is your story to tell.
yeah.
You know.
Well, maybe awakening would be a good thing to talk about,
Hmm.
but I don't find myself to be an expert in that field, and I
Hmm.
would have a great deal of difficulty saying something along those lines.
Right.
Um, at one point, I wanted to write a book about what God meant to me,
Hmm.
uh, and even though that sounded interesting, as soon as I started writing down my thoughts, I said, "Well, who are you to talk about what God is?"
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I want to talk from a position of knowledge, and oh boy, I'm a fish out of water here.
Hmm.
Oh, I don't think you are. I think that if you were to recount stories of awakenings, you would probably be able to help in awakening even more people, and B, help those that have awakened understand what's going on. I feel like maybe God's using you as a tool to do this. Maybe the ETs are using you as a tool and a guide to bring this across.
Um, I'll have to do some thinking on that. And things happen to me early in the morning, so I'll see what kind of messages I get. And
Let me know.
That is interesting.
okay,
That is interesting.
Yeah,
You
let
know,
me know.
if you're getting into, ancient knowledge, it was believed that there were many gods, as per the Old Testament, and that it went back, like 10, 12, 14,000 years where they're finding ancient civilizations. Do you think that maybe some of these gods that the ancients speak about were maybe extraterrestrials that helped mold a civilization?
yeah, some of them were,
Yeah,
but when you have these civilizations that were highly advanced,
yeah,
I don't I don't know if I could say that they needed gods at that point,
right.
and maybe they were the extraterrestrials.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm not sure of that. I don't.
Yeah. It's a fascinating concept, though, is
Oh
to
yeah,
think, you know, it just goes to show that we ourselves are so primitive, we see one, we get so excited. But you look at ancient cultures like the Egyptians or the Mayans, and you look at so many of these, even these religious paintings, Da Vinci being a big one. There are
Mm-hmm.
pictures of UFOs, or they're
100%.
illustrated and painted right in these iconic paintings. So
yeah,
they were seeing stuff,
sure they were. Yeah,
you
yep.
know. So
Um,
Amelia, you need to do it
not
and
Yes, I need to do our
a
station
station
ID
ID.
just for one
Make our
moment.
sponsor happy. Okay.
Absolutely. If right now you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano, and our special guest tonight, first time ever, and hopefully comes back again,
You
is
will.
author Tom Conwell. And we are in New Orleans live on FM on 105.3 FM. And we are United Public Radio, Gods and Extraterrestrials International Radio. I think. And
Yeah, that's close
International
enough.
Public Radio, I think so.
I know. I
And
know.
tonight and every night that we are on air, we are fully sponsored by the good folks at Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much, Folgers. We truly love you. Thank you for your
We
support.
do. We
We
do.
do.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
I love those cups.
Thank you. Aren't they great?
Oh, wow.
Folgers loves us. We love Folgers.
Wow. Boy, I should go in the other room. I have a great big box of Folgers K-Cups.
Oh, geez, see, you should have brought it on board. You'll know for the next time because you are coming back. So
Okay.
You'll know next time you come, you make sure you have them by your side.
that's
Will
it.
do.
So please continue on. I think we were talking about the ancients and, their depictions of that they were seeing something back in the day,
Who knows? Now the people from back in the back after the last ice age. This is
Yes.
like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. I think from there to pretty much the present, there was an occasional sighting in the sky, but I don't think that there was a whole lot going on. What happened immediately after the ice age thawed, and I wrote about this in my second book, They Are Here, Volume 2, that the people that survived needed help, and they were contacted by what they termed half man, half fish. And these people came out of the water and taught them how to put together their civilization, how to catch fish, how to eat, where to get food, just all the things necessary in order to survive. And these were mostly the Native American tribes in the Canada area.
Wow.
And the Native Americans saw these ships come up and thought that the people that were in the ships must be fish, but they weren't. They were just extraterrestrials. And the same thing was described in ancient Mesopotamia, in Africa, in Australia, that there were half man, half fish, and they shone like the sun, like they glowed internally.
Yeah, glitter.
And
Yeah.
they were all described in exactly the same way at around the same time. Now,
Wow.
obviously, these things that were coming out of the water were coming out of the water and going here and there, and then returning to the water. And that's how the story started, that there were half man and half fish.
Mermaids.
But
yeah.
these stories were all over the place.
Mhm.
Everywhere within the United States of America, there were you're going to find a story, especially told by the Native Americans, that they had help,
Mhm.
and this help was by either half man, half fish, or ant people who came out of the ground to help
people.
them.
Yeah, the
Oh
hope
my
we
gosh,
speak
yeah.
about. Yes. Could these beings could they be from the water, half man, half fish? Could they be these mer people that so many people claim to be seeing?
I
It's a-
don't know.
It's a curiosity, isn't it?
Yeah. I have a little bit of a problem calling them mermaids,
Right.
or anything like that. But
Right.
What could they be if they're from another planet? Might they be amphibians? Possibly. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, not so much like mermaids per se. I know recently there was a documentary that was released, and I guess they were deep sea, and one of the deep sea cameras caught what appeared to be a large tail, but they caught almost like a human hand, but with webbed and a spear. And I'm thinking that's deep sea,
Yeah.
and it's sort of left scientists going, "We
What
got
the
nothing."
hell?
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
We
Where's
call them
Disney
mermaids
Pixar?
or
Yeah.
mer people because that's our we're being
Yeah,
linguistic
but it
with
doesn't.
what we have, but maybe there is another name for it.
Yeah. Boy, Yowie.
Yes, here we go.
Oh,
Um,
okay, we need to know names and what type. Let's see that little fur
Here's a
baby.
puppy.
yeah.
Make your debut.
Oh,
That's
gone.
that was Chrissy.
That was Chrissy's
Aw,
15 minutes
so
of fame.
cute. There we go. Pets
We're
always
all
welcome on our
dog
show.
owners. Yeah, we're all dog owners. So
Yeah, pets always welcome. So yeah, well, it's interesting. There are so many stories that have subterranean um, beings that come up. We've had guests on the show talk about beings that, there's stories where people go in and they go into the mountains, for example, and they're exploring, they're caving, and all of a sudden they just disappear and they see things like cities, and they walk in a little further to explore, and it's like that portal closes up and they're just gone. So
Yeah.
they're everywhere.
This falls under the I don't have a database that I could refer to that shows how
Yeah.
many of them there are. So
No, of
I'm
course,
just
that's
guessing.
okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
no,
that's
it's okay. We're just having a discussion because we're
Yeah.
curious, right? We're just talking about it.
We're very round table like it. Everything is just sort of like bouncing ideas back and forth and incorporating your thoughts into all of it.
Yeah,
So
because that whole thing with merpeople, mermaids, or they could be aliens, they could be secret. We don't know because the oceans are vast, right? We're just
very
pitching ideas.
unexplored.
Yes.
Yeah, the story that I like the most is the one out of Lake Baikal in Russia, where the some of Russian divers went down into Lake Baikal and saw these things. They were described as almost lizard-like, and they had these strange things over their heads that allowed them to breathe. It's very weird, but that is a group of sightings that you can almost take to the bank. You say, now that is probably a real story that's coming out of there.
In the 80s, I think.
What they saw was something very real. And that's the one that I'd like to sit down with those people and chat with them.
Yeah, because it's a military story, I believe, the 80s. And there's a section of that lake that is so deep that they believe there's a base there. I found that story to be fascinating as well. They're not going to just make it up per se, because they lost people. I believe they were attacked, if memory serves me right.
Yeah. It's the deepest lake in our world.
Yes.
Yes. That, of course, doesn't count the ocean, because there's some areas of the ocean that are far deeper. But yeah, that makes for some interesting thoughts.
Doesn't it, though?
Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Russian scientists that learned how to summon UFOs, much like what you can do, actually.
Without physics.
I thought it was pretty exceptional and rare, but apparently you're saying, no, it's going to happen.
You don't even have to be a physicist. It's amazing.
Yeah. If you have good intentions, just go out and look up to the sky and just let your intentions be known.
Right. That's simple.
All you need, and it works. It won't work like mine did, because mine I was outside asking once a day for about 6 months.
Wow.
And then the first one happened, and they happened like pretty quickly afterward. But it may take some time for whomever's receiving the messages to be able to tell what's going on with you. Michelle, are you psychic?
Yes.
You are. Okay. Well,
Mm,
Amelia mentioned that she was.
yeah.
So if you were to go out and make your intentions known and say that you aren't looking to get ahead, or you don't have any ill thoughts, and just put your thoughts out into the universe. That's all that's necessary. You'll see something.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah, I'm
Interesting.
Yep.
Amelia's a
good. But
chicken.
thank you. I'm
Yep,
very much a chicken. I am.
Now that's all that CE5 is.
Okay. Thank you.
So just
I will think
pause.
about that. I will seriously think about that. I don't have any recollection of ever seeing or any contact, but it doesn't mean you haven't had any from what I hear. But
Yeah.
yeah, I sometimes wonder if it's my fear and they're just keeping it from me.
So some
But
people see them pretty regularly. Other people don't,
no.
and want to. Do you think it's because they're looking for something in specific, or because I mean, let's face it, like why not just drop down so everybody can see you if you're trying to come forward and disclose yourself?
Wow. I really don't know if there is an answer to that question.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Is your mic off?
It could be on the screen. Just
It could be
unmute
on the
at the
screen.
bottom. I do that all the time.
You may have clicked the button.
Yeah.
You see at the very bottom? Oh,
There
okay,
you
there we go.
There you
Okay,
go.
so maybe unmute that and see. You mute. Okay, can you speak again?
Should be okay.
Yeah, we can't hear you at all. All of a sudden, you just disappeared.
Somebody's trying to keep him quiet.
Yeah, who's trying to keep you quiet?
Who's trying to keep
Can't
you
hear
from
you.
talking to us?
Yeah, we're not
Hello,
hearing
can you
you.
hear me?
There you
we
go.
are.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
I
This
accidentally mute my mic all the
little
time.
thing here.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
know.
I've done it. It's okay.
Yeah, as you were saying.
I don't remember. What was I saying?
You fit in so well. It's not funny.
Yeah. As to why some people see them and why some people
Oh, yeah.
don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Why do people see them? I think that they're ready to see them. And I also believe that the extraterrestrials know who's ready to see them and who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
If that even makes sense, if
does.
it's even possible to show themselves to somebody standing on the sidewalk and the person standing next to them can't see them. I hear all kinds of stories like that.
Yeah,
And
I've
the same
heard
goes
that.
for ghosts too.
Yes.
Some people will see ghosts, and the other person just hasn't a clue that they saw something. And
Just not open to it.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, you're either open or you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. Some spirits can look just like us, and if you don't know, you would just assume that's just another person passing by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
unless they're in period clothing.
And some extraterrestrials can project, I guess, sort of shape shift, I suppose, or project how they want us to see them. I understand the reptilian race can do that. A child can look and see them for what they are, and adults would look at them as though they're a person. If that's a thing, who knows how many are walking around?
Yeah, really.
Nightmare.
Now that would be frightening to see one of those guys.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picture yourself in next to James T. Kirk fighting one of the Gorn. That's what it would be like,
Yeah, they're pretty big. But I'm kind of on the fence with it because I mean, You don't see a whole lot of good ones, but yet apparently there are a lot of people out there who have been in contact with them who find them, they say they're very gentle. I'm thinking, this is sort of I don't know. See, I agree.
I don't know. I'd have a little problem with that one.
Me too.
Yeah, I would stand back about 50 feet and say, well, okay, prove it to me first.
No, exactly.
They're very adamant about it as well.
Yeah, some people are very adamant about it. They'll say no. They're very, very gentle and giving, and they're very forthcoming with information. And like I don't think I've ever.
You'll never hear those words out of my mouth saying I work with them. That doesn't happen. No,
exactly. Yeah, I'm good too. So, as we're slowly nearing the end of the show, what do you want us to know? What do you want to put out there and talk about in your research that we haven't covered?
Okay.
This time around.
We covered.
Stage is yours.
Okay. I didn't prepare for that question. That's very interesting. I believe that the smoking gun in ufology is contained within the databases that house the sighting reports.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is because if you hear somebody talking within ufology, the first thing they go to is a particular sighting, and they try to dissect it and talk about this and that, and then you have somebody to the right of them who says, no, you were seeing the planet Venus, and then somebody from the left of them is saying, no, you probably were still asleep, you dreamed it, and it's that kind of thing. They take one sighting and they try to pull it apart and make it not real.
I get it. Yeah.
With the databases, you have 160,000 sightings. Well, how do you disprove all of those?
Well, that's just it. You try to discredit as many as you can.
But you're still going to have, even if you use one of the numbers that MUFON uses, that perhaps only 5% of the sightings are real. Well, I think first of all, the number is a whole lot higher. But even at 5%, you're talking about 10,000 sightings.
Yes, exactly.
That's just ridiculous.
Not everybody is wrong, right?
That's absolutely correct. Not everybody's an idiot.
Right, exactly.
I'll say it less eloquently. There are ways to put forth your information. And what I would recommend to everybody is to utilize the databases, look at the amount of sightings, and read the database for yourself. The National UFO Reporting Center information is all right online. All you have to do is click into it and start reading. There's a long report for virtually every single sighting. And some of these are very well written, and you know that they aren't written by some 11-year-old making something up. You just know it.
I agree. I agree with you. I think it comes down to that control thing again.
Yeah.
They just won't give it to us. They just won't give it to us. You have people every day, like I said, camera phones, eye on the skies. Like here, you see them like regularly. And there's a military base not even that far from here. You'll see one come up and you'll see these black copters just like 10 minutes later, they're just gone. You're like, see, I knew it was something, It's just like, you got to give it to the people once in a while because they really do get the best stuff, But I get it in a way. They can fudge things too on the computer, right? You can fake photos and...
As far as the photos go, there's a whole lot of those that are nonsense. But then every so often they'll sneak one that's real in there,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's used to saying, "Oh, it's fake, and you get 50 comments afterward that it's been faked, but it happens to
Mm-hmm.
be a real one. Um,
Oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah,
That
exactly.
happens a lot. That happens a
yeah,
lot. It's hard
Yep.
too if the sightings are anywhere near, let's say, they have forest or base or an airport. They're always going to discredit what you saw. They're always going to be able to pull it apart because they'll blame it on, just being anything that could have been in the air. You didn't see it correctly. So unless you're
Mhm.
in the middle of nowhere, your credit is almost zilch
hmm
with that.
yep,
That's the sad part about it, right? Because I'm thinking about, have I ever seen anything? And I'm thinking about that as you're speaking, and I'm going, wait a second, I'm beside two airstrips and an airport. I would
Mhm.
never. Even
I think you
myself,
have to,
I'd be saying no, that had to be,
but
unless
you
it was
second
hovering
guess
and
what you're
staying
seeing.
there.
I
You
think we're
do.
conditioned to not
Yes.
know. We're conditioned to not
sure.
pay proper
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah,
I
we're
think
we're
so.
also conditioned to discount what we see.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Ha-
absolutely.
have you run into any, any resistance when you're presenting your map? Because ufologists, I find, are very, very competitive. Have you run into with your research? Because I look at this map, I see it's full. It's really
Detailed.
overwhelming as to how
Yeah.
many sightings are there. Do you get any resistance because you have so many people saying, "Oh no, it's not a thing"?
Yeah, some of the resistance I get is they'll ask me where I received or where I got the sightings from,
Of course,
and they'll say, and of course the answer is the National UFO Reporting Center, and they'll say, well, okay, they don't send anyone out to to investigate any of the reports, so
right.
therefore they're all no good.
Oh, I see. Okay,
You know,
yeah.
that's
So
probably
then why
one of the
have it?
more brainless comments that I've heard, but I've heard it
Wow.
more than once. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah, it's just one more thing,
I
to
believe
try
that's
to
why
take you from it.
that's why they don't, maybe, I believe they send people out and they don't tell you. But I believe the
Mm.
reason why they tell you they don't send people out is because they don't want it investigated. It's easier to say that and say, yeah, there was nothing there or they would have gone. Most people would think that. But those of us behind the scenes would be saying, well, wait a second. I know you went out there. What did you find?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I suspect that some of the investigators from MUFON who actually do go out, some of them are really good. I know some of them, and they're very good friends of mine. But some of them, I think they feel it's their job to discount everything that they come across.
Yeah. We have
Well,
that
you
in the
want your
paranormal as well.
naysayers. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, everybody, you have to go through the process of elimination to a degree, right? And
Sure.
see what you're left with. But some people do go overboard. They
Yes,
really
they
do.
do. Yes, they do.
And that's in any field,
It is.
right? So,
hmm
well, we are nearing the end of the show. So, this is the part where you promote yourself, you promote your books, if you have a website, anything you have coming up.
Okay. Well, my name is Tom Conwell, and I write under Thomas W. Conwell. My books are all available on Amazon,
Okay.
Amazon.com. You search for my name and the name of the book. That's usually the best way to do it. If you put both in there, the names of the book are They Are Here. It's volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3.
Hmm.
Going Interstellar, which is about the physics involved in order to keep these crafts in the air, and earthquakes and UFOs. I do not have anything planned at this point
Hmm.
because there has been a lot of conferences canceled, and
Yes.
I've sort of backed off from doing any of that for a while. But
Yeah.
I'm going to start looking. But now that there's a Delta variant out there now, I'm wondering
It's a
if I
different
should let
world.
that try to pass, you know?
Yeah, it's
Oh
a
my
different
gosh,
world.
I understand.
But for those who are listening, Tom is back on the Outer Realm on November 18th. We're booked again.
I can't wait.
So
Can't
I
wait.
that will
had
be
so
fun.
much fun with you.
Oh, thank you.
you. Thank you so much.
And I'm sorry my questions were so long. I'm a rambler. So I just do. But I thank you for joining
just
us.
just that one time that you asked me a question, I expected it to be longer, and you asked me a short one. So you threw me.
Now you're ready. You've been through the rehearsal and
Yeah,
you're
that's
great
right.
for November.
That's right. Now I know.
I'm French, so
That explains a lot.
yeah, we're pretty laid back here.
Mhm. What is that behind you, Michelle?
Which piece?
It almost looks
Like
like
I said, we're pretty laid back, round table. Like all we're missing is the wine. So
I think you
Yeah,
didn't hear him. He's asking you
Yeah.
what's behind you.
what is behind you? It almost looks like there's a
Oh, she's got to come back
oh,
because she's probably had a drop. Which one? The chain meal?
it almost looked like a coffin.
Oh, she has coffins. I don't know if it's
Oh,
in that room. I
okay.
have to
Well,
ask Wayne.
my
Oh,
goodness.
Wayne says, great show again. Thanks so much, Tom. Great listening to you and all your information. She'll be right
Thank you.
back. She'll be right back up. But yeah, she has quite an extensive collection of medieval pieces
Oh, okay.
in her
Okay.
home. And her home was built in the 1800s. So
Oh my
when you go
goodness.
in there, it's stunning. It's a beautiful, beautiful home, manor.
Mhm.
There, can you hear us, Michelle? Can you hear us? Yay!
yes.
Okay, he
Yeah, I
just
don't know. All of a
asked
sudden,
what's
everybody was
behind
gone, and
you.
I'm like, wow.
No,
So
Tom
yeah.
just asked what's behind you, and is it a coffin? And I go, which
Oh,
piece?
I do have a lot of I guess they're called medieval revival. So instead of being from the 1400s, they're still a couple of hundred years old, from probably 17, 1800s. So yeah, and that Knights Templar chainmail, and just I have a large collection of church pieces and a lot of collection of carved old pieces. So makes me feel homey.
Okay.
So,
I
but
told
thank
him
you.
the house is very old. Very,
Oh, the
very
house, yeah, it's 1872. So
Wow.
it's old enough, I guess, in today's standards, at least in this day and age. I travel extensively, and many of the places I've been to, you're going back to the 1200s, so really old. But it's always nice. But I'm looking forward to the next time you're coming on, and I want to thank you again for joining us. And it was really awesome having you on. Your wealth of information.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll be in touch again for sure. So
Okay.
if you've never used this platform, the only way you can escape is by clicking the Leave Studio button. And I say that because I've had more people say to me, how do I get out of here? Because otherwise you could be here till morning.
You're
So
with us in the post-production meeting.
that's true.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Tom. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Amelia,
Bye-bye.
Michelle, thank you very much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Tom. Take care.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, we have come to the end of another fantastic segment of The Other Realm. Thank you all for tuning in. Everybody in chat, thank you to our special guest, Tom Conwell, our producer, Joe Montaldo. Huge thank you to our sponsor, Folgers Coffee. And remember to stop by our YouTube channels here on UFO Paranormal International Public Radio. I'm going to leave it right there. Subscribe. Seek us out on Facebook on The Outer Realm, also on Instagram. Message us at theouterrealmcontact@gmail.com. Next week, 2 more amazing guests. Ronald Kinsella, author of The Digital Demon, is going to make his first appearance on the show. And it's UFOs, it's ETs. It just sounds extremely enticing. Thursday night, we welcome back Chris Stiles, the Shag Harbor experiencer. And again, a wealth of information. But he's going to be picking up where he left off with respect to UFO encounters and sightings, documentations in Canada, which there's just not a lot of. So while we do that, please don't forget about us. We've posted on some of our Facebook social media. Podcastawards.com finishes July 31st. So you only have a couple days. So please find us at the Out at Realm under the social and culture category. And of course, please find us on the People's Choice category as well. Don't forget our peers, writers, and illustrators of the future podcast, education, storyteller, drama, Central List with Joe Montaldo news category, science and beyond, science category. Vote, vote, vote. Vote for us. We love everybody, but vote for us. Anyway, until then, Amelia and I thank you. We'll see you next week. Have a fantastic weekend. Those in Canada, it's a long weekend. Be safe if you're traveling. Thank you. Good night.